What's up, everybody? Welcome to Fake Plastic Treefingers, the podcast about all things Radiohead. Brannick, what's up?
I guess it's the King of Limbs.
The King of Limbs is what's up. In this episode, we're going to be discussing the King of Limbs, Radiohead's 8th album.
Yeah, this is a very interesting one.
Mhm.
You know, a lot of people don't like it. So,
Well, yeah, let's get into it, and then you'll find out. We're going to talk through our initial response to it when we first heard it, and we're going to talk through each track individually, and then we'll give our current feeling on the album towards the end. So stick around. Make sure you watch the whole thing so you understand where we're coming from.
yeah.
All right. Well, let's talk about just the facts first. So, King of Limbs was recorded from May 2009 to January 2011.
So a long time.
Yeah, pretty long time. It's about the same
Yeah.
period of time as the Kid A and Amnesiac sessions, I think. So,
Yeah.
And it was released on the 18th of February 2011. It was recorded at the home of Drew Barrymore. So back to Los Angeles. Do you know who Brannick, by the way, do you know who Drew Barrymore is?
I've heard the name before. But I'm not. I don't know who he is off the top of my head.
Not a he, a she.
A
right?
she. Oh my
yeah,
God.
Actress. She was originally became famous as a child actress in the movie E.T. And she's been in a lot of other movies ever since. And she's like a film producer, director. Very accomplished individual on the Hollywood scene. So she's very versatile. She does she's done drama and she's done like comedy and all those kinds of things. But anyway, just an interesting little note for somebody of my generation and of Radiohead's generation. She would have been a fairly iconic individual, right? Like everybody knew who she was, right?
Okay.
So it's interesting. I guess maybe they were friends, or maybe she was just renting out her house, and they were like, "Yeah, let's use Drew's house." So,
Cool.
Anyway, yeah. Producer is Nigel. So Nigel was back for this one.
Yeah,
so.
he's just like last time. I think he's the main producer. Radiohead didn't isn't really said to be one of the producers. So
yeah. All right, and so we're going to share our initial reactions to this record. But before we do that, please hit the like button. Hit that like button. Drop us a comment below. Say what's up. Tell us what you think about the King of Limbs. Let us know what your favorite tracks are before we tell you our favorite tracks at the end.
Yeah.
And then hit that subscribe button. Please help us out. Hit that subscribe button. All right. So this one came out 4 years after In Rainbows, and In Rainbows, I guess closer to like 3.5 years, but In Rainbows was we talked about it on the last episode, and I think it restored Radiohead for those of us who may have been fans for a long time. We're starting to lose interest a little bit. I think it was that record for me, definitely, that said Radiohead means business. Like, they are a great band, and they're probably going to continue to be a great band forever, right? As long as they're around. So it was pretty exciting to think, okay, what are they going to bring us next? And so the King of Limbs hit, and I don't remember there being kind of the big thing that they did on the King of Limbs to unveil it, right? The thing within Rainbows was they kind of, In Rainbows is an important record, not only in the sense of the record itself, but like in kind of their release model for it and what they decided to do there. I don't really recall there being much of that with the King of Limbs. It was something we, anticipated a little bit. They did some interesting promotion, I think, with like, a newspaper, and I think interestingly, like they released some songs as like standalone singles as well. And that weren't actually on the album. So, and then of course there is the iconic video for Lotus Flower that, I remember people being like, because it was right at that time on, when the internet was just getting to be this place where everything gets unveiled and things that are a big deal get shared with people outside of the normal sphere of like people who would care about that. And I think there was a lot of people just being like, who is this weird, is that the guy that sang Creep way back in the day? Like, what's, he's so weird now, right? So
got like a hat on, he's like dancing.
Yeah, he's doing the Tom York dance, what do you say about it? But anyway, so I think for me, this album was one where I was like, In Rainbows had just, I bought back into Radiohead, and I was kind of like, okay, I'm gonna like, I'm really gonna go full into this album and just accept it for what it is. And I think at the time I was a little bit like, it's all right. But what I did, Brandick, I looked this up right before here. For a couple of years around this time frame, I actually had a little music blog, and I wrote a review of the King of Limbs, a pretty short one when it came out. So this is from April 6, 2011. You want me to read this?
Yeah, go ahead.
All right. So this is like a little less than 2 months after the album had come out. Well, this one was bound to be a divider, but it has won me over. Yes, I'll admit it was lost on me after my first few listens, but then again, it took me several months to break through with Kid A. Maybe I'm just one of those suckers who will fall for anything, but I really dig the fact that the overriding theme of this record, for all of its electric and industrial sheen, is the natural realm, pure and simple. I can just see Tommy Boy strolling through the post-apocalyptic forest with Mr. Bluebird on his shoulder. Sonically, Limbs is a fantastic offering. True, it's only 8 wide, but it's an octave of tracks. Its octave of tracks forms a delightfully dense and spectral aural mist. Side B really steals the show, kicking off with the truly brilliant Lotus Flower, followed up by the chillingly gorgeous Codex, which might just be a better piano ballad than Videotape. Sorry, Brannick. At this point, anyone who expects Radiohead to make a predictable record needs to get a clue. While I'd love to get the guitar-heavy follow-up to OK Computer that I've been thirsting for since 1997, I've also learned to love the fact that Radiohead will never make the same record twice. The King of Limbs payoff is anything but immediate. Yet for those who are willing to listen closely for the tender, the nuanced, and the elegiac, it is without a doubt one of the most rewarding records in the band's catalog. And then some random notes. Perhaps the King of Limbs is the avenging angel of death on the cover, ready to get back at mankind for the mess we've made of things. This is their most mellow record for sure. It reminds me of the Amnesiac B-sides, especially Kinetic and Fog.
I can see that, yeah.
And if you think this is over, then you're wrong. Please let that mean a follow-up is coming soon, right? So that's the last record. That's the last line in Separator, the last track. And then I actually made it top 5 on my list of the best albums of 2011, and I'll read that too. If Radiohead is capable of making a roots record, then this is it. Rather than going to Nashville and getting all strummy, though, Radiohead imports the outdoors mimetically. On Bloom, the pianos unfold like flowers in a field. On Magpie, the guitars jitter back and forth with the spasmic, angular rhythms of birds. Even Lotus Flower, for its synthesized palette, rises pure and pristine out of the mess of the first half. All in all, the King of Limbs is meant to be heard as a whole, but there are 2 standalone gems here. The first, Codex, is a mysterious masterpiece, all mood and gorgeous darkness. The washing away of all the electronic mud of the first 5 tracks. The second, Give Up the Ghost, sets York against singing birds, plucking out a little acoustic ditty while spectral voices beg for mercy. These are the human monuments on a record otherwise given over to a strange synthesis of the electronic and the organic, where we set out an expectation of a universal sigh. Still, one can't forget that as a whole, there is an unsettling element running through, an element reinforced all the way through the album's final track. If you think this is over, then you're wrong. It's that cover. The King of Limbs bent over, coming for humanity with ghostly eyes, and an apocalyptic terror anticipating a day of reckoning. The King of Limbs is a manifesto of primal environmental vengeance. Compare with God's Grandeur, which is a poem by Gerard Manley Hopkins from the 19th century. So a lot of words there, Brannick. What do you think? What do you think of my assessment from back then?
Yeah, I think it goes really well, actually. I think I agree with a lot of it. It can be kind of hard to get into this one at first, but it does take a couple listens. But once you do, it truly is a really interesting album. And I agree with a lot with what you're saying there. You know, the electronic and also natural elements to this are very great, and how they kind of collide with each other.
Yeah, I think it's a really cool synthesis, right? I think it's a really like fast. I feel like that's almost the point of this record. Is it's like, it's like we're like a lot of electronic going on, but then we're gonna do, we're gonna do all this. The themes are very like natural, right? They're like very like organic, very natural level. So it's interesting to think about, like, mankind is kind of pitted between those two things, right?
Yeah.
And just a little note on my blog here, I find this humorous. So I had a little thing over on the side that was like eagerly anticipating new music from, and one of those things was, this is stuff from like 2011, stuff that I was looking forward to in 2012, right? So 10 years ago, one of those things was Terror Twilight Deluxe, the last Pavement record, which is actually coming out in like a month as we record this, right? So it took 10 years to get to the Terror Twilight Deluxe edition, which of course is indirectly connected to Radiohead because Nigel produced it,
and Johnny Greenwood plays harmonica on it.
And Johnny Greenwood plays harmonica on it.
So pretty much, I guess Pavement finally came across your little blog post right here and decided to put it out for you.
I personally take credit for it.
Yes. You should.
All right. So yeah, Brant, do you have anything else to say like about your own initial reaction to this record?
Yeah, no, I don't really remember it at all.
Okay.
So I think we should just get into the tracks.
Let's get into the tracks then.
Yeah.
All right. Before we get into the tracks, hit that like button, drop us a comment, and hit that subscribe button. By the way, I'll link to both those reviews in our notes for this episode, so you can go read them yourself.
Yeah, and tell us your thoughts on this album. It's a very I feel like dividing album.
It's an album that I feel like needs a lot of thought, needs Radiohead fans to contribute their thought to it. All right, track 1.
Bloom.
What do you do with Bloom?
Well, I mean, it's not as good as an opener as 15 Step, but it's still pretty good.
Yeah. I think from the outset they established that they're going to be doing that they're going to be using some unusual song structures, right? If In Rainbows felt a little bit like a return to form because they rocked out, there was some more like straightforward songwriting there. The songs here are they're not the straightforward songwriting I think that most of us are used to, like most bands engage in.
Yeah, right? It's very chaotic and very noisy as well. The opening piano is also very kind of disorienting. I feel like it feels a little awkward, but it also works. But yeah, I like the horns on this song a lot. I also like the string arrangement. So yeah, it's a pretty good opening track. I mean, you can't really after making 15 Step, it's kind of hard to hear kind of hard to make a pretty great opening track to follow that up, but I think this is a pretty good opener.
Yeah, well, at the very least, it's interesting, right? This is an album that just if you engage with it, you got to engage with it, you really have to think about it, right? And you have to kind of just be patient and let it bloom, right? Kind of just let it do its thing, right?
Yeah.
Track 2,
Morning, Mr. Magpie.
Yep.
Yeah. This one is I feel like this one kind of along with Bloom really defines the album. I really like the opening. I really like how it just kind of sounds like it's lagging. And it's a pretty cool track. I don't think it's as good as Bloom, but I think it's a pretty good track.
Yeah. It's like, hey, you want some guitars? Here you go. We'll play some like really like atonal, unsettling sounding guitars for you.
Along with a really weird drum beat.
Yeah, I mean, again, I feel like I can't with anything on this album, my working thing at this point is just I don't know what to make of it, right? They're like, with the exception of a few tracks, right? I'm just kind of like, I'm not sure if I like it or not, right? Like it's probably not the thing that I'm wanting them to play live when I go see them.
Yeah.
But I'm kind of great. It's like, I'm kind of grateful it exists because it's so challenging as a listener.
Yeah. And it really, it is. It's very hard to listen to at the same time, but once you can just listen to it, it's really rewarding. I think it's a pretty cool track. So very interesting one, at least.
Yep. Little by Little, track 3.
Yeah. This one's like pretty I don't know. I feel like it's kind of forgettable. It's not bad anyway. I just don't really remember it all too well. But I like the opening, the jangly opening. And yeah. Yeah,
I kind of feel about this one how I do about Morning Mr. Magpie, right? It just doesn't it's like I want to feel like there's more there than I'm hearing, but it just doesn't it doesn't connect with me in the way that so many other Radiohead songs do. But it's also not like, it's not like something off, it's not like one of the filler tracks on Pablo Honey where it's just like, this is just like whatever, this is not even interesting. It's like, there's still something interesting about it.
It's interesting, but it's kind of like, it's interesting, but do I want to listen to it?
Right.
You know?
Right. Exactly.
So I think it's an interesting track nonetheless, and it's good that
I'm sensing a theme of interesting with this one.
Yeah, just a little bit.
It's like what you say about something when you're like you're well, and I don't mean it on this level actually, but sometimes you just say, if you like don't like something but you're just trying to be nice, you're like, oh, interesting, right? And then sometimes, but in this case it actually means like, I do think it's interesting, but I don't know what to say about it. I don't know what to say about it.
It's really hard to actually think of something to say about it. But also, I just realized something. It kind of seems like he kind of references no surprises in here, because he says a job that's killing you. So I don't know. That's kind of interesting.
Yeah, I can see that, right? The theme of like, just kind of takes it out of you like every single day, like little by little, it's just killing you, right?
Yeah.
That's kind of the idea behind No Surprises, right?
Yeah.
Little by hook or by crook, I'm such a tease and you're such a flirt. Once you've been around enough. Obligations, complications, routines and schedules, a job that's killing you, right? So so a verdict, interesting. There you go.
Yep, there we go.
Track 4,
Feral.
What do you say?
So this one is, I think, hated by a lot of the Radiohead fan base. They just don't really they say it's pretty weird, but I actually like it a lot. I think it's really interesting, and also I think it's just a cool song. It only has a couple lyrics, but it's I like the sound effects and the synths. I think it's a pretty cool track.
Yeah, this is one of those where it's like, I keep on forgetting what it sounds like. That's how much
that's kind of like what happened to me with Little by Little.
Yeah. So I'm gonna turn down the volume real quick while I listen to the first few notes of Feral, because I'm like, I've listened to it a couple of times in the last few days and I can't remember what it listened. So give me one moment. Okay. All right. So that one, let me make sure I got my levels here. Yeah, there we go. So you know what this one always reminds me of? It always reminds me of the first track on Atoms for Peace.
I haven't listened to Atoms for Peace yet, so I don't know.
Oh, you haven't listened to that? Okay.
No.
So it almost sounds, the first track on Atoms for Peace, this sounds like it's the backing track for that.
Oh, right? Okay.
And I'm not sure that's actually the case. It's just like I always expect to hear there's this guitar figure on the Atoms for Peace, on that Atoms for Peace song. The song is called Before Your Very Eyes. It's like, and I always expect to hear that coming in right there. But yeah, it doesn't do a lot for me. It's just kind of Feral. It's just kind of noisy, ambient. But I mean, but what we do have here with these first 4 tracks is this, and especially once we get into the 5th track, right? Like we seem to have this theme of like the natural world, right? Yeah. Bloom, magpie. Magpie is a type of bird, right? Yeah. Feral, Lotus Flower, even Little by Little. You might argue that like you're kind of being, little by little, you're kind of just being drawn back to the earth, right? Drawn back to the dust, right? The dust from whence you came. So, maybe Feral is just supposed to feel like that, right? Like it's like this kind of this feral call, right? This feral animal, right?
Yeah. But I know you just said that you I guess you're not really artistic enough to really understand how amazing the song is, but I think it's pretty good.
Oh, I'm not artistic enough.
You're not artistic enough.
Oh man, you're throwing down.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I guess that's just the way it is for me, y'all. Yeah. So track 5,
Lotus Flower. Yeah. Well, we kind of talked about this earlier. It's a pretty iconic song. The music video is also very iconic. And it's so far the first like 4 tracks have been very chaotic. and just kind of feels like they're not really sure where they're going with it at some points. Whereas this song just feels natural. I mean, the last couple of songs sounded natural in their chaos, but this one sounds natural in its you know, and just its and just its vibe. So I think this is a really good track. I enjoyed it a lot. I think it's one of the best songs on the album.
Yeah, it definitely is one of the best one of the best songs on the album. It was a lead single. You know, I think it's got a really cool groove to it. It you know, it works in context with the rest of the album. You know, probably not a top 10 Radiohead track for me, but a pretty cool one nonetheless.
Yeah.
You know, definitely one that I can get into. And it's still, even though it's like it's the most single worthy maybe on the album, it still has that like interesting, like it's just, I got to think about it more. Like, you know, I'd really need to spend more time with this song.
Yeah.
I feel like this is a song that if on, you know, maybe in future seasons, we're going to do one where we kind of spend one episode on one song and just like really go through it in depth and think a little more deeply about it. And I think this one could be a really interesting one to do. There might be a few other tracks on this album that could be interesting to do with as well.
Honestly, I think all these songs, you probably could do a pretty interesting episode on it.
Yeah.
Because they're all very different.
But yeah, so the Lotus Flower, you know, pretty good track.
Yeah.
All right, track 6.
Codex. So I know you said in your review, you know, this one was like a videotape done better. And you kind of looked at me and you're like, sorry. But honestly, I think I agree. I like this one.
Yeah.
As much as I love videotape, I think I like this one just a little bit better, you know? And this is, I love the song so much, you know? I love the phaser on the piano. It sounds like it's underwater kind of.
Yeah.
Which is interesting because you know, the lyrics talk about jumping into the lake.
Yeah.
And also that is this supposed to be like some sort of like sequel to Pyramid Song or something? Because they're both piano ballads and they talk about jumping into rivers or
interesting.
Lakes. So
interesting.
Yeah.
I could see that, right?
Yeah.
And I love that you bring that up, right? Because, you know, you think of like pyramids and like, you know, the kind of ancient Egyptian culture. And of course, like Codex. I don't know if you know what a Codex is.
I think you've told me, isn't it like ancient text or something?
It's basically like the early version of books, right? Because
Okay.
way back in, you know, in ancient times, they couldn't make books, right? They had to, you know, basically write on these papyrus things, and then they would try to compile things, and you might get a codex, right? Which was like the one copy of all these like important documents, right?
Yeah.
And you know, so it has like just that title alone kind of gives it this ancient feel. So, you know, there's the lyrics to this one aren't very complex, but it's more about the feel overall of the song, and just having like a very like mysterious, like almost like harkening back to the ancient world. Maybe the idea is like when we were more connected with the natural world, right? Instead of having all this technology that like separates us from it, right?
Yeah, and I feel like this is honestly the most natural song on the album. You know, maybe Give Up the Ghost, but I think this one is pretty close, and it really makes sense since the last like 5 songs, maybe not Lotus Flower, but those 4 songs have just been so chaotic. Whereas this one is just kind of like reminding you of the natural world and how peaceful it can be. So yeah. Also, I love the horn and the string arrangements on the song. It get me every time. Yeah, the song gives me chills. I love it.
This is one where you kind of want to like put on headphones and just kind of close your eyes and listen to it. You know, it's like it's such a like immersive song, and so it's like the idea of like jumping into the, like you're just being immersed, and just kind of floating in this ether of mystery, you know. Really amazing feel to this song. So it's fantastic
beautiful.
track.
This is one of my favorite songs.
Fantastic track for sure.
Yeah.
All right, track 7,
Give Up the Ghost.
Yes.
Yeah, mostly acoustic guitar and like some birds in the background and Tom singing, and he doesn't want us to hurt him.
Yeah.
Or maybe something else, I don't know, maybe some feral bird.
Yeah. Well, it's mostly like "Don't Hurt Me," but is it Tom? Is Tom singing that from his own perspective, or is he singing that from the perspective of something else, right, or someone else, right?
Maybe.
And but this one, not much going on lyrically, but another really beautiful song, right? I really love the kind of just gentleness of this song. You know, kind of another like disturbing lullaby kind of deal, right?
Yeah.
Really great vocals from Tom.
Yeah, I love his vocal performance on this one. The falsetto sounds very good. So yeah, I like this one. I think it's pretty good.
All right, and track 8,
Separator. Pretty good closer.
Yeah.
I don't think it's as good as Videotape, but then again, what is? I think it's pretty interesting one. You know, it goes back to the pretty similar like beat to Lotus Flower. And their Lotus Flower and this one I feel like are pretty similar. So yeah, I think this is a pretty good closer.
Yeah, I think this is a good one. You know, definitely not one of their best closers, but it's pretty good. Like it's not a bad one either. It's just kind of what you'd expect, I guess, from this record, like to close it. You know, that first half, you're just kind of like, I don't know, I don't love this, but it's still interesting, and I still want to listen to it a little more. I don't just want to like. It's not like it's just like, you know, dumb garbage. It's like they're really trying to do something that's worth engaging with here.
Yeah.
And I feel like Separator is the same kind of deal. So, you know, I think overall, we get like 3 really great tracks on this album, and then 5 other pretty interesting ones, right? It's kind of how it works with this. Brannick, like, what's your current assessment of this album?
I think it's a pretty good album, you know. Yeah, I like it a lot, actually. I think it's a pretty interesting, well done album.
Yeah, you know, for me, this one, we've said interesting a million times on this episode about this one, and it certainly is. I think for me, I just like the head scratching part for me is that there were 3 songs that were recorded at the same time as this record that were left off the album that are just absolutely fantastic, right? Like absolutely prime quality Radiohead, right? Super Collider, Staircase, and the Daily Mail, right? All fantastic. Even the Butcher, I feel like, is pretty good. And it's just interesting to me that maybe they chose these songs, you know, to be like, you know, not like Lotus Flower, Codex, Get Out the Ghost. Those are all like, you know, clearly they belong on a record. The other ones, I just like, it really must be about the theme, like a statement,
right? I think so.
Like the artistic statement of the record, to have included those over the other ones, right? They must have really felt like this was something that was speaking through them that needed to be said. I do really find the title very interesting, right? That like the King of Limbs is like this spiritual creature that's like speaking through them, right, to the world. And you know, in this record,
well, actually, it says right there on Wikipedia that it's derived from an ancient tree. And the
Savernake. I don't know how to say that, but Savernake Forest and Wiltshire. So, which I believe was in Wiltshire, was one of the places they recorded In Rainbows. Going back to that one, but Tottenham House in Wiltshire. So
I'm just gonna say something right here. So a lot of people consider this to be Radiohead's worst album, and I mean, I can see it. Definitely, it can be hard to listen to. But what really annoys me when people say that is how one of their arguments about it is how it's self-indulgent. Like, have you listened to Radiohead before?
No,
like,
right?
Kid A, Amnesiac, those are extremely self-indulgent. Okay. And that was probably more of an if we're gonna talk about obnoxious self-indulgences, those were more obnoxious because it was earlier in their career. When you are 7 albums into your career, you can make something self-indulgent, okay?
Yeah.
Especially with such an experimental band as Radiohead. So, it's fine if you don't like this album, but please don't say it's their worst album because it's self-indulgent. That's just a really stupid argument. So,
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, it's like if you've had the success that Radiohead has had, then like it's like I think you've kind of earned the right to indulge your artistic impulses and your artistic sensibilities.
Yeah, and if you don't do that, music can become not very fun anymore.
Yeah,
you really got to indulge.
You got to be able to find the joy in making music yourself, right?
Yeah.
I mean, at this point, Radiohead did not need to to have another Creep, right?
Yeah,
like
they really
they'd
didn't.
been there, done that early in their career. They just, I'm sure they were fine from a financial point of view.
Yeah.
And so it's like, why don't we just spend the rest of our career making the music that we want to make?
Yeah.
Right.
Which is what you should do.
And if you're along for the ride, great. So yeah, I mean, is this my favorite album? No, but
yeah, definitely not.
But I appreciate that they were really trying to push themselves to make something interesting. And it's like, and that you have to like actually spend some time with and really think about to engage with. Right.
Yeah.
And I think I read back on those reviews and I really did find this album stimulating when I spent some time and thought about it. Right. When I kind of took together all the themes. It's not the first Radiohead record I'm going to put on when I'm just chilling and like want to listen to some Radiohead, but it's worth revisiting every once in a while and thinking more deeply about what they're saying.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
Well, y'all got some controversy there. What's your, I'm sorry, we got to do favorite songs. Yeah.
Yeah.
So favorite song on the album, Brannick?
Codex. I love that song.
Yeah.
It's beautiful. It's eerie. And the horn and string arrangements are just, chef's kiss.
I'm going with Codex too. I mean, it's got to be Codex. Codex is a masterpiece. Just such a wonderful, wonderful song. And I might not be able to listen to this album at all if it wasn't for Codex being on there, because it's just such a like, it works so well on the flow. And it's really interesting. One final thing I'll say about the album as a whole is that the second half is superior, way superior to the first half.
Yeah. I'd say starting with Feral, it's really amazing.
Well, you really like Feral.
I do. I like Feral a lot, but
I'm not as into Feral. But definitely from Lotus Flower on, for me at least, is really good. It's a pretty good half an album.
Which is
I'm like so this one I gotta say, I think at some point we'll do some bonus episodes where we maybe at least one of us has a chance to go back and resequence an album, or say like, they should have cut these tracks and put these tracks that were B-sides or, non-album tracks from this era onto the record.
Yeah.
I think it might be fun to, just to kind of experiment for sake of argument with some of that stuff. But
maybe we could make a perfect album out of all the B-sides.
Well, I'm sure we could, because there's a lot of good B-sides. There's a lot of really good B-sides.
Probably make a couple. So
what's your guys' favorite track on the King of Limbs? Let us know. Are you on board with Brannick and you think the Feral is pretty cool? Or do you think Little by Little is your jam? And tell us why, right? That's the most important thing, I think, is tell us why. Help us see the beauty, the amazing things in these songs that we're not picking up on.
Yeah. And if this is like, if you don't like this album, tell us why. And this one, I think there's a lot of interesting arguments to make about this. So, but yeah, if you don't like this one, tell us why, but don't say that it's self-indulgent. That's why.
Or if you do say that it's self-indulgent, then, maybe like explain why that's bad.
Yeah.
Explain why that's bad. Okay. That would be the thing.
Yeah.
So I'm looking forward to the conversation on this one, guys. So please do leave your thoughts in the comments. We encourage all your thoughts. Let's have a cool conversation about the King of Limbs, one of Radiohead's most interesting albums, and tell us your favorite tracks as well. So, and finally, hit that like button, subscribe, and just interact with us down in the comments. All right, that's 8 albums in, and we got one more to go for now. Now, maybe between now and when we record this next episode, they'll surprisingly put out album 10 for us. Who knows?
Maybe the Smile is actually Radiohead in disguise.
See, I've been theorizing that the Smile is actually right. This is their new surprising release strategy. Is they're going to release it and say, psych, the album is called The Smile, and this is a Radiohead album, right?
Yeah. Well, both the songs sounded like they could have been off of In Rainbows. So yeah, especially The Smoke.
Yeah, it's true. All right. Well, thanks for watching this episode of Fake Plastic Treefingers, everybody. And next up is
A Moon-Shaped Pool.
All right.
That'll be a fun one.
Yeah. We will talk at you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye.